He glanced at his watch and noted the time. The minutes had slipped away. Working more quickly now, he emptied the suitcase of lubricant and massage oils and arranged them on the nightstand. He wanted them close at hand. Next, he removed a dozen fat candles. Some were short and others were taller. The girl in the shop had assured him they all smelled delicious and would burn for at least 6 hours. More than enough time. He scattered the candles around the room in groups of 3 and 4, taking care not to leave them too close to the drapes. It wouldn't do to set the place on fire. That was a sure way to send his plans awry. Feeling in his pocket for his lighter, he frowned, remembering too late he'd given the cigarettes away. He'd finally given in to his wife's urgings to put a little more effort into his health, and as a result, he no longer had a need for a lighter. He'd have to request one from housekeeping and make sure it arrived before she did. She wasn't expecting his call, and he had no idea where she was, but she'd come when he asked. Of that, he had no doubt. He strode over to the telephone that sat on the desk on the other side of the room. Picking up the receiver, he rubbed absently at the pain that continued to niggle behind his eyes. His vision blurred, and he blinked to clear it. The call connected, and his thoughts were diverted. He requested a lighter be brought to his suite, and then asked to be transferred to room service. He was always famished after sex, and so was she. He placed an order for the two of them, and asked for the delivery to be delayed. After confirming a bottle of Moet and 2 champagne glasses would be brought to his suite directly, he hung up the phone and returned to the bed where he removed the final item from the suitcase. A single, perfect red rose. He brought it up to his face and inhaled its fragrance. Heady and sweet, it was everything he hoped for. He closed his eyes and luxuriated in the whisper-soft stroke of the velvet petals across his mouth and imagined her lips in their place. Soon. Very soon. With the last caress of its petals, he placed the rose on the pillow. Shutting the lid on the empty suitcase, he fastened the zip before carrying it across the room and stowing it in the closet. Returning to the bed, he smoothed out the wrinkles on the bedspread and then stood back to survey the results. It was perfect, just like he'd imagined. All that was missing was her. A knock on the door interrupted his musings, and he strode across to open it. A young bellboy offered him a smile in greeting and wheeled in a small table covered in a white linen cloth. The boy's gaze strayed to the bed, and his eyes widened in surprise. He glanced at Duncan with a knowing grin. Duncan raised an eyebrow and wordlessly dared the boy to comment, but the boy's gaze fell to the floor, and he wisely chose to remain silent. Someone had trained him well. An ice bucket containing the unopened champagne and a couple of crystal glasses stood on the table. A lighter lay to one side. Duncan nodded his approval and went to reach for his wallet. Too late, he remembered he'd left it locked in the glove compartment of his car. Not that it mattered in Australia, where tips were neither necessary nor expected. "You let me know if there's anything else you need, Mr. Smith," the boy said. "Just ask for Charlie." "Thank you, Charlie. I'll be sure to do that." After closing the door, Duncan returned to the table. He lifted the champagne out of its frozen bath and smiled in satisfaction. The bottle was icy cold. Everything was ready. It was time to call her. Sudden nerves of anticipation coursed through his arteries and tightened his gut. He'd waited so long, and now the moment was almost upon him. He tugged out his phone and then gasped in agony. Pain like he'd never known seared through his head and burst behind his eyes in white-hot shards of torture. He clutched at his face in an effort to stem it and stumbled toward the bed. The phone fell from his fingers and landed, unnoticed, on the carpet. Groaning and holding his head in his hands, he collapsed onto the bedspread and curled up in a ball. The headache was beyond excruciating. He gasped on a sob and tears leaked from his scrunched-up eyes. He couldn't bear to open them. His head was going to burst. Nausea gripped his belly and he doubled over again. In some distant part of his brain he knew he had to get to the bathroom, but the signals to his legs just weren't getting through. His stomach cramped and tightened, and vomit spewed from his mouth. It dripped down the side of the pristine white bedspread. He stared at the mess in horror and disappointment until everything turned black.